Select Board meeting. I'll call the Brandon Select Board to order at 7:09. Is there any action regarding the agenda that was posted?
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
And a second?
Sorry.
Second from Mr. Wyman to Mr. Markowski's motion. Any changes to be made to the agenda that was posted? Any public items to be added from members of the public in the room or on Zoom? Okay, if not, all in favor of adopting the agenda that was posted, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. About the minutes, you can take them together separately as the board prefers.
We need to take them one at a time because Mike wasn't here for this second week.
No, we don't need to take them, we can do them together.
Okay.
No.
I'll make a motion to approve both.
I'll second.
Mr. Coolidge seconds Mr. Wyman's motion to approve both of the minutes. Any errors or omissions in the minutes that were submitted from either meeting? If not, all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Any abstention?
I'll abstain, I wasn't here for the second.
Okay, 401. Item 3 is the town manager's report. Mr. Atherton.
All right, so this is my report for June 27th and 26th on there. So I was out of the state for most of last week, but when I was here, I held a pre-construction meeting for the Arnold District Culvert replacement with TCE and Pool and Landscaping. That's Trudell Civil Engineering is what TCE stands for. And Pool and Landscaping on June 16th. They're tentatively scheduled for construction to start in August. We're planning on closing the road to through traffic during construction from Arnold District Hollow Road intersection to the town line on the north end. We'll be posting the road closure in the Reporter and the Addison, as well as sending letters out to residents on the district, Arnold District, Rutland Northeast, Leicester Town offices, and any others we can think of. We're hoping the Highway Department would take advantage of the closure to replace some cross culverts, and we're seeing if that will actually work. So, but more to come with that, and once we get closer to a date, we'll let folks know. Had a meeting to discuss further funding options for the wastewater treatment plant upgrades with Aldrich and Elliott and various state entities. This was a conversation that came out of our last select board meeting. So we're still moving forward to that. We're hoping that we can see some more grant funding come in. So met with Nancy McGuire at NRCS and Andreas with Watershed Consultants on moving forward with Stormwater Chamber Project, which was identified in our Stormwater Master Plan up on West Seminary. There's more in our packet tonight with that. And just something I attached here that I thought was kind of neat, that according to Matt Shirley's Instagram followers, Brandon is the most underrated city in Vermont. Mr. Shirley is known for his brutally honest charts and graphs on all things life related. And I attached, so it was in color, so it looked kind of nice for me. But that's kind of cool that we're on another national map. And then I wanted to add something before going to bills. I got an email today from the Department of Health that Governor Scott signed in that Law Act 181, which governs the transition of authority for rental housing, health, and safety to the Department of Public Safety. They're telling us right now that town health officers should remain authorized to conduct rental housing inspections and issue appropriate health orders until the Department of Public Safety contacts us at a later date. So I don't know when that date is, but rec news. Baseball season is wrapping up with Majors Championship game for the Randy Adams Youth Baseball League being hosted at NSB tonight. Many thanks to our sponsors and coaches for an amazing season. The Brandon Independence Day celebration is on Saturday, June 2nd, which is this Saturday. Parade starts at 10 a.m. with activities, music, food, and fun all day long. Fireworks will cap off the day, and all of these activities are happening downtown. If there are any folks that would like to volunteer, please contact Bill Moore as soon as possible. Many thanks to Joel and Darcy McLaren of the Brandon Inn for being great hosts of multiple events and activities, the Brandon Rec swim lessons, and the upcoming July 2nd family area, and the Brandon Area Chamber of Commerce Summer Concert Series are the most recent examples of their community service. And July 9th is the inaugural Davenport Electric Fest, which is being held at Esterbrook Park on the 220th birthday of Brandon's greatest inventor, Thomas Davenport. A partnership with Green Mountain Power, the Brandon Rec, and Brandon Energy Committee. This event will run from 11 to 6 and feature electric motor-powered buses, cars, motorbikes, bicycles, lawn equipment, and more. And apparently there's going to be food trucks, music, and games there. That's all I have for my...
Thanks, Mr. Efferton. Questions for the town manager from the board?
Yeah, kind of on that same theme. At the last meeting, I was asking you about the charge point and wondering what you found, if you had found anything out.
I haven't found anything out yet. I'm also wondering if that should be maybe a board decision to make, that if the board wants me to look at changing the fees on it, whether they decrease or not.
Oh, I'm not suggesting we change it. I think my question was, can we change it and how does that work? And I was really looking for some background information. And then I agree. I think it is a great topic to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's reason to... It would be an interesting discussion because you could argue for it to go up or down, and so you'll find out if we can change that?
Oh, we can change it. I mean, we're the ones that set it up. So Jackie and I were the ones that contacted ChargePoint in the beginning, and we did a bunch of research on what was being charged in Middlebury and Rutland, and I don't know where else we looked, kind of up and down the Route 7 corridor.
Yeah.
And came up with, I mean, we based it on what ChargePoint suggested anyway.
That was their recommended fees.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess that was the basis of my question, because as I told you last time, the per kilowatt hour fee is fantastic. It's unusual to charge a car at a kilowatt hour rate that's what you pay residential. But the unusual part is that we're charging for parking because we don't charge anywhere else for parking in Brandon. And so it seems like there should be similarly, no charge for parking in EV spot.
Well, we can look into it. I mean, I really think that at that point, I mean, I'm going to have to take a board decision on that, on whether we should or shouldn't, I don't...
I'm assuming it's just an incentive to move your car away from the plug.
Yeah, so when we first set this up, that was what came up, that if you go to your ChargePoint app and then you're in the queue and it says, your 2 cars out, and you go in and you plug in and it says you've got 45 minutes to charge your car or whatever, it gives you like a little lead time before you pick it up, but if you're still sitting there plugged in, it's going to charge you a fee for sitting at that.
Well, that's not exactly how it works, because I charge at charge points a lot, and so yeah, when you drive in, you just plug in. You don't have to order it up. You don't have to reserve a spot, and they charge you on the rate that's there right from the moment you plug in. So if it says there's a parking fee, it doesn't wait till you're done charging to start charging
It
it.
does sometimes. Different places.
Maybe sometimes, not on ours.
Different places.
Because ours is a flat 75 cents an hour. And I mean, are you suggesting that we put this on an agenda item, so we come up with a motion and...
Well, if you guys want to set fees, I mean, I don't think, if there's a question, like, we did it based on what ChargePoint, suggested, and the research that we did, seeing where it was, and we were pretty much right in the middle of almost, other than giving it away for free.
So we do charge for parking separate from the electricity consumption from the moment that you plug in.
I'd have to look at that stuff, I don't know.
Yeah, that's what it is. I mean,
does the town own the equipment, or is it owned by ChargePoint?
We own all of it. We bought, that was all part of the grant. We own all of it. So,
I mean, could I guess I would make a motion then that the board, authorize you to put the parking down to 0, so we're only charging for the electricity. Because I think that also properly incentivizes, kind of like it's a halfway point between what we did before, which is where we gave it away for free. And this is covering our electric costs, which is appropriate. And
well, we gave it away for free because that was part of the grant when we had to do it. And actually, we did it a little longer than.
Oh, I understand.
I think it was supposed to be a year. So, I'd like to make sure it covers our costs. I mean, I don't think we should go in the red with it.
No, that's why I think covering the electricity is great. And I would propose that, like everywhere else, we don't charge for parking and we charge for electricity. And so I guess I would make a motion that the board change the fee to just electricity with 0 parking fee.
Is there a second?
Does the fee right now with the parking, do we know if that parking, or if we eliminate the parking fee, does that still cover electricity fee for us? Or,
It does.
I don't, okay, I guess I've never seen, or really known about the bill from that, and how much it is.
No, it only started billing, what, a month and a half ago?
I'd have to look it up.
Seems like if we own it, we should, if we're gonna have to pay for any repairs down the road, we ought to have a little bit extra. And if that's all our equipment now, I think we should leave the parking fee where it is, because we just barely break it even.
That,
No, we
you've
didn't.
been through the charge point, and this is what they've suggested, or what they're, I think, leave alone.
Even though we don't charge for parking anywhere else in town. So you're really
Absolutely.
choosing just the electric cars are gonna get charged? That doesn't seem fair.
It doesn't seem fair, but it doesn't, if they've got 45 minutes to charge their car, they can get back and move their car to a free parking spot. Everyone's,
But they're gonna pay for that hour of parking. They shouldn't have to pay for it.
So I don't mean to jump in, but we're talking about what seems fair. Electric vehicles, I don't believe, pay a road tax.
So you're suggesting we turn this into the
Well,
money
no,
we're
I
gonna pay the
mean,
roads?
there's so many ways to avoid costs with an electric vehicle already, but those of us that can't afford the electric vehicles at this point are still paying the road tax to even fill up our tank per gallon.
So I
I guess I have a hard time with the whole electric vehicle not supporting a road system.
And I'm with you on that, and I would love to see the legislature solve that problem, but having us charge for it in our town, unless you're planning on passing that money on to roads,
Well,
is
there's
not
nothing
rational.
saying we couldn't.
Do we know if the parking fee goes to the town or to ChargePoint?
It comes to us, I believe.
It comes back to us.
Do we know if ChargePoint can tell us whether we could charge for parking like only after the charging was done?
Can ask them anything we want,
Yeah.
sure.
So
So
maybe we should
I
wait
just
until we get a little bit.
wanted to, so
I'm fine with that.
Is that cool?
a friend of mine from Montpelier came down for one of our wonderful Newton Road field trips, and she plugged her EV in down there, and I think she was plugged in for 3 hours, and her car was 50% or somewhere around there. Whatever charge, I don't know, she was there for 3 hours, it cost her like $4.97. She was pretty happy about that, she plugged in there for 3 hours and it was less than $5. So, just wanted to throw that out there.
No, if your point is that it's pleasantly inexpensive to charge electric cars, that's true.
Do you want?
cheaper than a gas tank at 50%.
Yeah, I'm happy to wait. I'll put this on the agenda for next time, and we'll gather more information. So you'll be able to find out if we can change the parking fee to only occur after the charging is complete?
Sure.
Great, thanks.
That seems more reasonable. Other board questions for the town manager?
Yeah, I have a second question. So a while back, Dave, you formed a racial equity group with Sue and I think it was Bill. And I'm curious to know how that's going, if you have an update or if there's any kind of regular meetings that are happening with that group.
We've had 2 meetings, but the rest, we've been fairly busy with rec and Sue with her stuff, so we haven't had one in a couple months, but.
Couple months. And is there update on your plans? Is there some kind of summary you can give us of what that group is intending to do?
Not yet, we've only had 2 meetings, so we're kind of waiting for VLCT to hand down their stuff from the equity, can't even think of the words now, conference that they had that I attended, so that just came a couple weeks ago. So we're going to piggyback onto that and go from there.
So do you know when your next meeting is?
I haven't scheduled one yet.
Well, I'd be curious to know when you do, that you schedule one, I'd be curious to know what happens.
Okay.
Other board questions? Dave, you talked about Act 181 and the rental inspection being taken on in after a transition by the state. Have you talked with our rental officer about this yet?
It just came in.
Just came in, okay. Will you be
Yeah.
in terms of, his continuance.
Well, I'd like to see if he sticks around until this goes over to the state.
I'd say he could.
Would be a nice
If
transition,
you
so.
consider sticking around. And then, do you have an anticipated duration for the Arnold District culvert project?
Not yet, well, it's gotta be done by October 15th latest, because we have to be out of the river by then, so, depending on when the box is constructed and can get here, I don't think there's a lot of prep time involved, so, gotta pour some footings, and I don't know yet. I don't have a set in stone, no pun intended, their schedule. It should go fairly quick. I mean, if the box is coming, they prep for it, they can set it in, a day or two, probably a day, it's not that big. So,
Okay. Questions from the public for the town manager? Folks on Zoom? Okay, there's always public comment time on every agenda item. Don't be bashful. So that was 1 through 3. Item 4, zoning administrator's report. Jeff Biasucci is here. Thank you for this report, Jeff. I didn't realize that we were coming up on like a scheduled check-in from you, but I appreciate how you set out the report to us. Did you want to highlight anything in it?
Well, if you don't mind, I hate looking through that post, so I'm just going to...
It's like Fenway Park, it's the obstructed view seat.
Okay. You only get to see me during semi-annual reports or by request, and the fact that you haven't requested my regular attendance is a good thing, I think. But I appreciate the report. It was a little better than average permit year last year, and we've had some forward progress in commercial work. At least commercial work that's being planned to go to construction. And then, of course, there's been some new developments with the Steinberg Road area. The biggest thing I'd like to discuss tonight is that the Planning Commission has had really a huge shakeup since the departure of 3 long-term members there in the past year. And now we just learned at the last Planning Commission meeting that we're actually going to have a vacancy for 4 members probably by the end of summer. And there isn't an alternate planning commission member, and they aren't lining up at the door to take vacancies. So I don't know what...
Can I just stop you for a moment?
Yeah.
You're anticipating, the planning commission's anticipating a vacancy of 4 positions on the 5-member board?
It's a 7-member board. Todd Nielsen
we made it a 5. We made it a 5.
Did I miss something?
Like last meeting. Last meeting.
Oh. That's why I missed it.
We heard there was some quorum challenges.
I didn't see that in the minutes. So you preempted my conversation in this report then, because Liz had to Todd Nielsen has resigned. Liz has resigned due to family health issues. Lowell is going to travel here starting in the fall, and he's literally going to be on the road for quite a period of time. And Bill Mills had given us a heads up that he was going to, be moving out of state. So, well, he anticipated being moved by the end of summer, and he's now our interim chair of the Planning Commission. So whatever the board might be able to do, whatever advertising we can get the word out, get it on the website, try to round up some new members. And because...
So we're going to have Ralphie, Thierbob Foley, Jack Schneider. Those are ongoing, continuing?
That's correct. And if any of them cannot make a meeting, then there's no meeting, there's no business getting held. The solution I've proposed in this is that you can appoint other members as an alternate, and the zoning administrator is eligible for that position. So since I'm there at the meetings most of the time, either remotely or in person, the theory is there's 2 ways you can appoint the alternate to step in. One is only to use the alternate if there's a need to make a quorum, or to use the alternate in the absence of any member during any meeting. Usually, the first one is usually the preferred practice in what I'm concerned. So as opposed to not being able to have a business meeting for lack of a quorum, the alternate can step in and serve as the quorum member.
Do you want us to discuss that right now? Or you want to?
Are there any questions on any of that?
So I do want to thank everyone on behalf of the board. I'm sure the board joins me in thanking everyone who has been serving on the planning commission. There has been some changes to the composition of the planning commission. They've been doing some important work. They will continue to do important work. It's an important commission for the town to be able to. It's kind of where like community standards and community values come into play a lot in terms of what regulations we're going to have. So I do hope that if anyone's listening or is going to be reading minutes, I hope that folks will consider stepping up to serve on the planning commission. Jeff, am I right that they're a once a month board?
Usually, usually meet on the first Monday of every month.
Right.
And have scheduled in the past special meetings if there's a deadline to hit.
Okay, yeah. Works.
Generally once a month.
So generally a once a month kind of commitment. If you
for
would.
2 hours.
A couple of hours. Great. So that's important. I personally would like to just kind of let the planning commission ride at that 5-member number, knowing that 3 of them are available for a quorum. I've got a kind of fundamental problem with appointing a non-Brandon resident to a Brandon board. And I hope that, Jeff, you'll continue to advise them. I think that that's valuable. I want, and this is my personal view, it's not the board's view. I would like Brandon folks to be on Brandon boards exclusively, but if others have other ideas, happy to talk. Listen.
It seems like going to 5 is our effort to help
Should
with
move
quorum.
towards solving it, yeah.
So Seth, I'm still gonna put something in the paper, I haven't.
Yeah,
in there,
please.
so.
That's a great idea.
That was,
And we could
that was.
chuck it
the
on
thing.
front porch forum.
Lane and I were seeing if anyone else was interested for a little bit, and then we'll post something and get all the vacancies for all the boards and committees out there.
And I don't know how.
Well, that's a good idea. You can do like comprehensive kind of like.
Well, if we're gonna pay
Yep,
for the ad,
yep,
we might as well
yep.
do them all, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
I'd be happy to do that alternative role if you felt that that was necessary in the interim too. If you,
To be an alternate?
yeah, if they were
Yeah.
short a person.
I like that idea. Do you want a motion?
I don't think there's any conflict.
Yeah, I make a motion that we appoint Sue Gage as an alternate to the planning commission to help with quorum as Jeff Susie described.
I'll second that.
Okay, there's a motion from Mr. Giles and a second from Mr. Markowski to appoint Sue Gage as an alternate to the planning commission. Any discussion?
Yeah, how is she gonna get informed if an alternate's needed?
Well, generally what'll happen is when the agenda comes out the week before and I distribute it to the board members, I try to ask board members who cannot attend to give me a heads up, or the chair of the commission a heads up in advance so that we know that we have a quorum. There's no sense everybody, going to extraordinary efforts if there's not going to be enough people.
Sue has a
And
lot
that
of
would be
experience in this regard.
So usually it's about a week or 10 days in advance that we'll have a heads up on attendance.
And the wall between his office and hers doesn't actually go to the ceiling.
Yeah.
So I think there can be pretty good communication probably.
I'm pretty easy to find. I don't go very far.
Any further
We know where
discussion?
you live.
Sue, thank you for making that offer. Ready to vote? All in favor of appointing Sue Gage as an alternate to the planning commission, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, that's unanimous, 5-0. Perfect.
So,
Continue.
to carry on, and possibly the most important part, are the zoning issues that are on page 2. David and I haven't had a chance to talk much about either cannabis or farm animals since construction season has started, and permit season has started simultaneously. But it seems in both cases, at least the board has decided to work on appointing the Cannabis Control Board. And until there's other rules, like the zoning, it's not in the blue. We don't have any jurisdiction as a zoning district, except for approving related issues such as fencing and greenhouses and maybe signage that are in the blue. So, other than that, it's really up to the future town cannabis board and the state of Vermont's cannabis board. So the farm animals has actually been kind of quiet this year as opposed to the prior year where they were a bane of my existence. But that doesn't mean that we still don't have issues. And so in other towns I've had to work on this topic. It's not unique to Brandon. What is unique to Brandon is at least they had some kind of a related animal ordinance, a related animal section in the zoning ordinance. And it was more dedicated to farm animals, which is less of what's in the town's standalone animal ordinance. And it makes perfect sense to take Dave's suggestion to make them all one freestanding ordinance.
And you said you submitted language for that?
To the planning commission. To the planning commission. There's a draft, if you'd like to look at it, go to the town of West Rutland, their draft zoning ordinance, which is really old. The proposed zoning ordinance is actually being vetted by VLCT right now. The planning commission has been working on it for 2 years. And in West Rutland, farm animals in the village setting have been very problematic. And they were silent on the subject. So there's now a section that addresses keeping of all animals, not just farm animals, in a village setting. There's some other sections in there that might be of interest to Brandon or not, but the planning commission has been proposed, the planning commission has been given a copy of the draft language from Wallingford and West Rutland and other towns, for that matter, and they're going to get to it eventually.
Well, it seems that the suggestion from the town manager, which I agree with, is that it be combined with the town's freestanding animal control ordinance.
Yes.
And if that's the case, it would be interesting to see the language and to start the process to amend the ordinance.
Well, if the board is interested, I can cut, I can send you just that section of the proposed language in West Rutland. It gives you at least some history of what they're looking to do. So.
I would raise just what I would consider a point of order, that if it's going to be in the blue O, the planning commission writes it. If it's not, we write it.
And I agree with that planning commission.
So I totally understand that. I think that looking at it as a enforcement issue, that it's going to be easier for the animal control officer for it to come out in blue, so Jeff doesn't have to deal with that as a zoning issue, and that it'd be part of the ACO ordinance. That way, it would be under Tim's jurisdiction.
Oh, I support the idea, as Jeff.
Yeah.
It's a good idea. I just think if it's going to be done that way,
Yep.
to be consistent with how we wrote the animal control ordinance,
Well,
it needs to be,
It should be expunged.
Right.
the hearings and so forth have to come from us.
Right, we've got to do the 2 hearings and post the addendum and all that.
Right.
And I guess I was wondering how to facilitate that, how to make that get started just so we can solve this efficiently.
I think my suggestion would be that Jeff gets that to you guys and myself. We discuss it, figure out what's going on, and then bring it to 2 public hearings. And
So we put it on the agenda for next meeting?
I don't know that it's urgent,
Well, I
but
don't think it's taking up too much of our time. It sounds like just the next step.
if Jeff gets it to me for the next one, we can certainly do that. And if we have time to discuss it too.
yeah, that was the thing. Really a chance to go over it might be advantageous. And I echo the board's, I think, sentiment here that we can remove it from the blue if there's a freestanding comprehensive animal ordinance.
Any objection? I think that's the consensus.
Put it on the agenda for next time.
Well, that, and also do it in that manner,
Right.
by not making it part of the land use.
It's going to be much simpler for the administration of the zoning rules because it won't involve the development review board.
Okay,
It's
right,
a mandatory part of it now, and that has been very time-consuming, costly to the animal owner, and really, I think the intention of putting in the blue wall was well, but the thought on how to administer it over time has become cumbersome at best.
Okay.
Great.
So then there's the signage issue. And if you folks have had a chance to see my comments about the 3 formally approved and recorded sign ordinances that the town does have, my point of that is I think that those should take the priority when sign questions come up, and then I bring you an actual application or a request for placing 2 sandwich signs seasonally on Central Park. So my solution, I would suggest, since it's for an organization that'll have this season probably every summer, the farmer's market, that, and as opposed to getting in the weeds with temporary banners, and maybe this will have to go to development review, but the suggestion I would make is for the farmer's market to make an application for a permanent permit, where they'll be able to display the 2 sandwich signs at a mutually agreed upon location at the park, and take them in when it's not farming season. But being a permanent permit, they don't have to come every year, and they don't have to worry about a maximum, let's say, 42 days, which is not long enough for their objective. So.
Thoughts?
I have a thought after Dave.
Town manager?
So last year, I don't know if you remember this, Jeff, or not, like, there was an issue brought up about the farmer's market, actually one from me too, that they were leaving their sign out kind of in the way of the crosswalk, and that it was a bit bulky. And I talked to, I believe, Wendy about it last year, that, you know, we're fine with it going up like the day of and coming down, but it just couldn't stay out there. And like Foley's do the same thing, and, you know, it really hasn't been a problem when they've done them for like a daily sign. And it's sort of kind of unwritten that that's what they've done, and it really hasn't caused a problem. My big concern is having 2 signs out there all year round. There's already a lot of kind of distraction in that area anyway with everything that's going on, that I feel like it could cause a blind spot or distract people from going through the intersection.
Well, I don't know where they have the location, and they just generally indicated the location on a hand sketch. So that by far and away, it hasn't been reviewed or decided, and certainly visibility and distraction and other issues to traffic and pedestrians is a long way from being decided here. I'm not saying approve what was requested.
When you say it's a long way from decided, on June 28th of 2021, which is almost a year ago, a motion was made by Tracy Wyman, seconded by Tim Giles, to allow for temporary signage for businesses to put out during business hours only, situated to not block the site for vehicles and not be placed within the highway right-of-way of 24.5 feet from the center line.
That's fine.
Now, we passed that,
Again.
and it was a suggestion from our town manager, which I think was a good one. And it needs to be enforced. And right now, that sign is in between the sidewalk and the road, which means it's right on the curb. And my feeling is that's a visual distraction. It's a busy intersection. Signs do not belong that close to the road.
So I hear a conflict here. I'm not sure you're talking about an existing sign, or
This is a motion that was made.
the proposed sign for the farmer's market.
This was a motion that was made having to do with all signs,
Okay. So there.
and passed by the board.
But he's talking also about the existing farmer's market sign that
Right,
is
okay.
regularly placed there.
So that's been generally ignored. I mean, and we've talked about this, and I know that this is.
Well, that's not true either, because I actually have notes that show that Dave has had people talking to business owners, encourage them to understand the sign ordinance, and so there's been some degree of awareness raised about what's allowed and what's not allowed.
Okay.
You're right that in general, there haven't been people keeping track of those, because there's a number of signs that show up on a regular basis.
And enforcement has not been taken, I mean, we haven't taken any enforcement action.
We've taken a few of them down.
Well,
That's
except
all that.
And I will add that when we have political signs, the road crew appropriately picks them up and brings them down to the town garage. And if you want to have your political sign back, you got to go to the town garage to find it.
Well-
And I think that's what should be done with these signs, is that they should be taken down if they're not according to the rules that we've set. Or we need to change the rules, one or the other.
Okay, so in changing the rules, let me say part of my point here in this conversation is that there's an adoption process for an ordinance. And your meetings and making decisions about signage, which are addressed by ordinance, is muddying the water. I mean, I get that the board would say we would like the authority to address this kind of a sign, but when it conflicts with an approved ordinance, it puts us at a difficult position as an administrator, and maybe it's unenforceable. I don't know.
Disagree on that one,
I'm
Jeff.
not getting into the plus and minus.
Well, only because we have this obligation within our right of way, and we found that out, 2 years ago with our Purple Heart Town signs, that, there's this state ordinance as well of what can be put within a right of way or not, and that's regardless of, if someone gets a permit for a sign for their building or for their storefront or whatever, that we have this sort of right-of-way obligation that we have to maintain. And the state's watching us on it now, and that's kind of what triggered all this, was that, we've got to be really careful, especially on our Class 1 highways, which are both roads that go through town, that we've got to sort of follow the state's guideline too, as to what can be, within that right-of-way.
Okay, so that's a point that I don't think the general public knows.
Oh, I'm sure,
And so, they just see signs up and they decide, well, I'm gonna put mine up. My real concern here about allowing signs on public property is that it's gonna proliferate. And,
I'm concerned about that too.
You'll get people that say, well, Tacos has got their sign and the farmer markets have got my sign. I'm a local business, well, I can't have my sign there. That it's all off premise. And the basic rules are you can't, it's state rules. It says you're not allowed to put business signs off premise unless under certain circumstances, special circumstances.
Right.
One of them in the Brandon zoning is that the select board can approve temporary signage up to 42 days, and then they can approve 2 21-day periods specifically, but 42 days. And the other one is that the select board does have the authority to allow private signs in public property. So, but I caution, I'm not saying it's a bad idea one way or the other, and I don't know if farmer markets should be given greater consideration than local restaurants, but I think it's getting into weedy territory. So, yeah, consider either saying, no, we're not going to allow any kind of private property signage advertising on public parks.
That's just another kind of, I think it's a little different when you have the farmer's market that, they have a permit to use the park on Fridays from 9 to whatever. I mean, why would they not be able to have a sign out there during their hours of business while they're basically renting the space from the town?
As long as it's 24 feet from the
Oh,
center.
yeah, absolutely, right.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think that
And I
at that
support-
point, does it become like, is it public land? It is, but they have, they've signed an agreement with us to lease, even though there's no dollar value for them because of the ag, but, to use that land as like their storefront from Fridays from, 9 to 2 or 9 to 3.
So I'm hearing valid points from all angles, and I don't think there's a clear, what I don't hear, and I don't see in the various decisions passed in meetings and in the ordinances that exist, a cohesive set of rules that people can read and understand that all allow for these issues, okay? So
I disagree, Jeff, because that was the whole point of that meeting a year ago, and I'm just reading the minutes of it to myself to refresh my memory.
Mhm.
The whole point of that policy or document was to make it a comprehensive thing so it would not be an ad hoc kind of decision by the town manager. It was like criteria.
It should have probably been incorporated in a revision of an ordinance. It's not an ordinance, it's a decision by the board. And you have ordinances here.
So
that-
the way the board took it was, like you just pointed out, the board can do these 21-day periods, temporary signage, that's in the ordinance.
That's already.
And the board was acting a year ago to say, this is how that 21-day exercise is gonna be,
You're adding
evaluated.
detail to the.
Well-
And I don't think that's, I mean, that's certainly understandable. What I'm saying is, one comprehensive revision might be due. How does that sound?
I mean, I know within the last 5-6 years, there was a pretty thorough sign ordinance revision within the Blue Oak, right? I mean, that took them some time, they boiled it way down.
It's not far, it's far from perfect, but yes,
Yeah.
it boiled down 6 pages to 2.5.
Yeah.
It was fairly comprehensive, and it is easier to work with than the old ordinance in most cases. But it also threw out a little bit of the baby with the bathwater in certain issues. But what it didn't address clearly maybe is what we're talking about is using the park, so, or public property.
Just one more
Yeah.
comment I have on that. So when I'm thinking of a couple examples, like even on, like, you know, Center Street here where the town offices and the businesses are there and they have the protruding signs. Those have always had to come to the board because they protrude into the public right of way. So I do think that the way that the board dealt with this last year with kind of doing a sort of a blanket of how these signs work, kind of covers it all. You know, and that still is a board decision.
That's not in section 407 of the Blue Oak.
Because it's a select, but it wouldn't be the Blue, it wouldn't be an ordinance within the Blue Oak, it would be a select board decision, because they have the say on that, and on what is hanging within a right of
If
way.
it's in a right of way, let's take that point, and I understand what you're saying, Dave. What I'm saying is maybe, I don't know where the right of way is. So when you talk about a projecting sign, take the,
I got a couple maps I can.
I
Well,
can
and
think of one.
explicitly
I can
it says
think of one everybody
4.5
knows.
feet from the center line.
I can think of a
If you
couple
want a
of-
very specific answer, that's one answer.
Well, then there's a lot of projecting signs in the central business district that should come down.
It gets a little weird to run down too, but we
Yeah,
have all the maps, so.
I mean, you could take the River Cafe, you know, they have a sign that's conforming to the Blue Oak, but conflicts your 21-day detail, which isn't in the Blue Oak, so. And the bookstore, on Briggs Carriage House, you know, that's conforms to the Blue Oak, section 407, but it's certainly closer to 21 feet to the center line of the road. So, you can see the confusion. If I have to deal with this on a weekly basis and I'm somewhat confused, or otherwise the merchants are somewhat confused, the general public can't understand it. It's like reading stereo instructions. Because of the various
I would
components
propose
floating around.
that the board's action of June 28th, 2021 be submitted to the planning commission for their consideration to incorporate it into the actual sign ordinance within the Blue Oak. Because that was clearly the board's intent.
And that's a great timing because, you know, 407 is on the top of the list for the planning commission as soon as the planning commission can.
Well, and in the meantime, I think Dave can use different levels of enforcement to see that this is enforced. Starting with just a simple discussion so people understand what the rules are, and you know, you can refer to this motion that was passed unanimously, and then if the discussion proves unsuccessful, there should be follow-up with some you know, ratcheting up of seriousness.
Okay. So we have a couple of unpermitted signs right now that have come up, new businesses have moved in. And one of them is right on point with this conversation we just had. But we'll discuss it, and I think the solution, the best solution is what you've suggested, is just, and I'm making the same suggestion. I'm saying with other fine signage points to be addressed, such as 21 feet from the center.
It's 24 and a half feet.
24 and a half feet.
Yes, that's what it says right here, 24 and a half feet from center line.
So basically, that's the limit of the right of way for town road, a class 3 town road. Is that what the right of way is through the central business
It's
district?
a class 1. I'll show you the maps.
Okay, that would help. So, I mean, pictures speak 1,000 words. If I can take a look at a map that says, here's your right of way, and here's where you want to put your sign, and here's the rule, people understand that.
So, like even through when we started segment 6, there were probably four businesses that the state told us we had to take their signs out of the right of way.
Freestanding sign.
That they had to like move to the other side of the sidewalk instead of it. So there was quite a bit of transition on those through that.
They're still up to that. They're working that magic down in Pittsburgh now.
I think the big picture is that, you know, the sign ordinance in the Blue O was developed through a very careful process of community input and hearings and planning commission and select board. There was a lot of stakeholders who were heard, and I think that the resulting ordinance was reflective of the community's desire.
I don't argue with that.
Yeah, and so I just want to make sure that, you know, what we're having as a conversation today is about ensuring that we're reflecting the community's desire through that thoughtful process, and that we're not making ad hoc, one-off waiver exemptions that say, yeah, 120 days in a row to park a sign on the town's main park is cool.
Well, then, maybe that's the answer to the big question here for this request, is we don't have that kind of permission in place, and the request might be denied. So, wait till next year. Just update, the planning commission early on in this calendar year sent out a survey to local businesses, pretty much focused on the central business district, but it was a general Chamber of Commerce mail out list, and it was a survey to say, what do you think would make improvements to the existing section on signage? And there was feedback, so that's being digested in this thing. I mean, there's a lot of good intent. One of them was to eliminate translucent signs, so no internally illuminated signs. Everybody can applaud that. The problem is, one of the enforcement measures to do that was to say signs have to be made of either metal, wood, or natural stone, no plastic. Well, most signs today are almost solid plastic. So what do? You know, so that's just an example of where the intention was good, but knowledge of the sign business itself was inadequate. So, and I've polled a lot of sign companies that call with these, especially these national companies, that do things for Walgreens and Hannaford's and, you know, the H&R Block. And they all want their standard, format that they do across the country. And many times they said, you can't do that in Brandon, sorry. And no internally illuminated signs, it's got to be wood, metal, and that. So what they do now is they basically have a metal aluminum sign that's plated on both sides with vinyl, you know, and then they put vinyl lettering on it. It's still a metal sign, but it's not really any different than using the modern sign materials that they have today.
So since Charlene is going to be taking these notes down at some point, I wanted to clearly go on the record that I want the farmer's market to have a sign, and I want the local businesses that currently do signs to have signs. I just want them to be out of the 24 and a half feet from the center line. And so I think there's a way for them to have their signs in the space without encroaching on the visual space of the drivers.
All right, respectfully, I think that blanket of 21 feet.
24 and a half.
24 and a half feet, sorry.
Just so you know.
24 and a half feet. I use it all the time, it's actually 24 feet 8 inches, which is half of a 3-rod road. But the problem is that may not apply in every case, especially one that's as complicated a road pattern as around Central Park. It could very well be that you sited off 21 feet, 24 feet, and it's gonna be in a bad spot for visibility or for foot traffic or something else.
Right.
I think signs should be placed and approved, or should be approved based on specific placement on a site plan. So I can go look at it, or somebody can go look at it and see if there's something else that needs to be considered. That's just my suggestion.
Yep.
So luckily, right there in front of Central Park also, there is 2 lanes, which are typically 10-foot-6 or 11-foot lanes, so there's 22 feet already from center line of the road to the curb line. Just to throw that out there. If you're calling the yellow line.
You're saying like where the turning lane is?
Where you have your turning lane plus your main line travel lane. So there's 22 feet from that center line, just to throw that out there.
Right.
And where their sign currently is, I believe it's right there at the crosswalk, is the last place I saw it. If they're 2 feet behind the curb, then that's 24 feet from the center line.
Right.
I'm sure if I went and talked to Wendy and said, hey, can you move your sign 6 feet this way? That's not gonna be a problem.
But just give kind of a reference point as to what 24 feet right there in front of Central Park is gonna look like. It's just outside the curb line.
Depending on where you consider the center to be.
Center line is the yellow line typically.
Well, that's an important point, because sometimes the travel lane isn't in the center of the right of way. Do you want to focus on a painted center line as the basis point of measurement, or?
I believe the state uses the center line as a visual reference point to your typical center line.
From outside of paving to outside of paving?
From your yellow line either side. The center of the yellow line.
It won't be out of the right of way. It won't be the 21 feet from the right of way.
24 and a half. But just a visual from the yellow line there, you're at 22 feet to the face of curb there already, so maybe I should have said that.
I know
a lot sooner.
All right, so Jeff, thank you for bringing those to us. And thank you, if you would, for bringing back to the Planning Commission our request to consider our board action June 28th of last year.
Okay, thank you, I will. And I'll send to you some of the information on the, I can send you the sign survey if that's of any interest, but I'll send you the animal language as well. Do you have are you going to make a motion on the farmer's market? Do you want to make a motion on the farmer's market? A request, or do you want to table it, or what shall I?
I don't believe we have authority to grant their request for 120 days, when clearly the maximum authority we have is 2 21-day periods. So I move that we decline to approve their request.
Second.
On the basis of lack of authority. Thank you. Discussion?
Is that 21 consecutive days at a time, or can it be broken up?
It's
one
2
day?
periods of year of 21 days, so if they take the
not
sign.
24 and a half days, right?
So that's where it is. So what is the reality of life is, I don't have enough time in my office schedule or work schedule to go around and time these signs too badly on a daily basis. Well, the answer to your question is if they put it out for 21 days, bring it in at night, and put it out again a foot later for another 21 days, it's 42 days. You know. But after that,
we're still talking about 300% of that. 120 days.
Yeah, the total is 42 days a year. That's basically what.
And it's not what they're asking us for.
No, they're over that. That's correct.
So
They may revise it.
We're halfway through the farming season already.
Well, the point is they may submit an application now, just timing from end of foliage season backwards to when they can put a sign up. You know, which might be middle of July by then.
Further board discussion? Public comment? Ready to vote? All in favor of declining to approve the request based on lack of authority to do so, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No, that's unanimous.
I can't get that song out of my head now.
What's that?
That song, Signs.
Watch your mouth, young man.
Okay. Any questions on the zoning violation part, and then I'll get out of it.
I appreciate you picking up the situation on Wood Lane. And,
Oh, it's been ongoing.
yeah, but I mean, I feel like the residents have expressed appreciation for the consideration.
Well, that's nice. That helps.
No, I think,
And the new police chief has helped
I
too.
was gonna say that, yeah. The PD
Oh,
and,
Chief Kachajian's been, right.
PD
yes, he's been
and
okay.
Jeff have been doing a great
Working
job
together.
on staying on top of that.
Great. Thank you, Jeff.
All right, thank you both.
All right. So to move on, we have public comment and participation. This would be items not on the agenda. Anything from the board? No. Public comment from folks in the room. Anybody got anything that's not on the agenda that they would like to bring up? Folks on Zoom? Okay, don't be bashful later in the meeting. That's also always okay. Item 6, appointment to the Energy Committee. There's an anticipated vacancy. The term is indefinite. Where's the letter from?
This is in our packet.
Oh, it's in this letter that I had, yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
So shall I make a motion?
So, yeah, go ahead.
I make a motion that we appoint Lolly Hoxie to the Energy Committee.
At the time of Lowell Rasmussen's completion of service.
Sure, at the time of Lowell Rasmussen's completion of service.
I'll second.
Okay, so motion from Tim Giles, second from Mike Markowski. It's the sprinkler being charged.
I've heard that in a long time.
What's that? I can't hear you, sorry. So Lolly Hoxie is a Brandon resident, and she is willing to take on the spot that Lowell Rasmussen is vacating. And the Energy Committee has expressed that they would like to have the position in place, like kind of without an interim period of an absence. So, discussion? Public input? All in favor of appointing Lolly Hoxie to the Energy Committee, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. Then we have, Dave, would you do me a favor and thank Elaine for the memo and for the updated lists?
Absolutely.
Thank you. It really is helpful to get those once in a while. But we lose track.
Can you guys hold on to that one for a little while? So, okay.
Yep.
That'd be awesome, because then
I held on to the one from 2 meetings ago because I thought that was like kind of fresh, but we've already changed it. Item 7 is a letter of support for the Brandon Free Public Library grant request. Do you want to speak on this? This came through you.
Yeah, this came through me. So the Brandon Public Library is working to get grants and support for their project, their improvement to the library. And one of the places they're looking to is this V.S.A grant and village tax credit. And so they need letters of support. Molly Kennedy reached out to me, and I support their work, and I would like to see the board adopt this letter that is in our packet to show our support for the library and help them get whatever funding they can get to help them succeed.
Is that a motion?
I make a motion that we supply this letter of support.
All set. Motion from Mr. Giles, second from Mr. Coolidge. Any discussion or public comment? Do we know both the letter?
Molly gave me the letter and I edited it.
Okay. Dave, is this the grant that they've named, is this the grant that we've supported them for in the past, or is it a different grant, or does it not matter?
So I don't know, because the first time I saw this letter was when it came in the packet. I'm assuming that it's the next step. I'm guessing that the first grant we did, that we went through, maybe Jackie can, that was like set up like when we do clean water, that they did the planning and engineering grant basically for the design for the library, which we were the pass-through. I don't know, like, I think we have to
What is
find
this
out.
one through?
It says VCHB, Village Tax
We were
Credit.
community development, we received.
Yeah, it was
Block
TD,
grant, like,
yeah.
And I think
It was
this
a block
is-
grant, the last one was.
This is called Village
CDBG.
Tax Credit / VCHB Grant.
Okay,
This
so
is
it's still
different.
part of a block grant.
And Sue has a
No, I think this is an additional grant, because he called the guy who does who's coming up with the grant work, called today to get some information about the library, just general stuff from, valuation and stuff, so that they were asking for, so.
It does
I
seem,
believe this is an additional,
that was the sense I got.
That's a separate funding entirely.
But it sounds like it's still gonna have to go through us though, so it would be nice if, I don't wanna speak for you guys, but if we knew what was going on, because, well, Jackie's gonna have to do all the work, so, I mean, really, that's how it boils down. We should probably have a conversation with them sooner than later about this.
With Molly and Dave Roberts.
Yeah, maybe they should come to the board. Because we really don't know anything about this.
Just to be clear, they need this letter. That was why the timing of this meeting is so helpful, because they were sending it in this week. And so as far as clearing up what it is, I think that can happen after we supply the letter. Yes?
It's up to the board. I will reach out to them tomorrow, because I'd like to see what we're getting into, if it's something that we gotta do, like we have been with this first grant or not, so.
What's the date, 27th? Can we hedge it a little and approve the letter contingent on any, like, lack of, major objection or time administration?
I think that's very smart.
Is that reasonable?
I think if you contact them tomorrow, that would give them time still, because I think they had to have it in by Thursday or
Yeah, I
something.
think we're gonna have to at least find out what it is.
Yeah,
All right,
because
so,
it's a bad time of year.
Modified by motion, right?
so,
I haven't been home yet.
yeah, we'll have to like total amendment to it. You can modify it, that'll be easier for Charlotte.
Yeah, I'll modify the wording. I'll modify my motion to read that the Brandon Select Board write a letter of support for the Brandon Free Public Library, with the condition that the request, to be sure that it fits with the town.
Is that okay with the seconder who was?
Yeah, I'll modify the second.
Okay. Public input or board discussion. Folks on Zoom also welcome. Okay, if not ready to vote, all in favor of writing a letter of support for the library for the Village Tax Credit VCHB grant that they're applying for, contingent on the town manager being able to get behind it in the next couple of days, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. It's unanimous.
I'm sure we're behind at the office, we just wanna know what it is.
Yep.
So, appreciate that. I didn't realize there was one.
Okay, item 7 was that. Item 8 is West Seminary Park Stormwater Mitigation. There was quite a little packet in the packet. Do you want to introduce this, Mr. Atherton?
Sure, I'll try to yell above our fire suppression system. So, back in 2017, we received our final report for our stormwater master plan that I've been getting lots of free money for from natural resources to do some of these stormwater mitigation plans. This West Seminary Park one was kind of a bigger one that was identified in that as a spot where we're basically receiving about 10 acres of runoff when, I actually looked it up today, so I feel smart again. Of runoff coming off like East and West Seminary and all the seminaries and prospects and everything like that. So there's a pre-existing storm system in there now. It's, you know, it's just a drop inlet in the pipe that drains out to a tributary to the Neshabie. So what this would do is put these kind of chamber tubes in the ground for better filtration, so we'd be, you know, catching more sediment and releasing more cleaner water. Kind of, we're actually looking at doing the same thing in this kind of public-private thing that we've been doing with New England Woodcraft. That A&R just gave us a bunch of grant money for that to cover the costs on that. So, yeah, that's what it is. It's, you know, it's going to be grant funded, and it cleans up more of our runoff.
When you say grant funded, is there a town participation match of some kind?
I don't believe so.
Expected?
No.
Don't believe so.
The last two we did haven't had it either, so.
Okay.
Actually, the last three haven't, so.
Great. Well, excellent. It was a pleasure, board.
I move that we accept this. Is that what you're looking for? Is a
Yeah, I need, you know, just okay to move forward with it so we can continue design and,
I make the motion that it's okay to move forward with this.
Second.
Any further board contributions on this? Any public input, questions, or comments about some stormwater structures to be planned for West Seminary Street Park? Okay, if not, ready to vote. All in favor of proceeding with this effort, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. It's unanimous. Town clerk's here, that's good.
if you guys ever, actually, I know it's like you got enough to do, but if you ever want to read this, it's actually pretty cool, the master plan that we did.
The master plan.
It's, yeah, I mean, you know, those guys came to town in the rain multiple times to
It's
testing. Oh, it's how we got the Park Street bioswales too, same thing. So it's, you know, it's brought a lot of money to town for stuff like this.
Item 9, the late homestead penalty election. What's the pleasure of the board about assessing the late homestead penalty, late homestead filing penalty? Or not?
I would start off, to allow us to get into discussion, to suggest that we don't have a penalty for filing late for the homestead. I would make that
A
motion.
negative motion. This is a joy for the minutes person.
Okay.
All right, so Tim Giles has moved to not assess a late filing penalty on homestead declarations. Is there a second? I'll give a second so we can have this discussion, right? We can have a discussion anyway. What's the discussion?
Well, I'd be curious to hear from Sue whether if she sees a benefit in having a penalty. And if there's not a benefit in having a penalty, then I see no reason to assess a penalty.
I do not see a benefit in having a penalty. What basically happens is it's generally someone who has a complicated tax return, a Schedule C with multiple businesses, maybe LLCs. They file late, they file their homestead late. Because of that, they end up not getting the homestead, and then they pay more then we basically get more taxes. Their tax bill goes up. And they don't get the homestead or any of the benefit of it. And there's only a couple people in town that this has happened to. It's not a lot of people. I think there was a time when people were not filing their homesteads in a timely manner, and this went into place to encourage that. And I think it's worked, I guess. People, I think, are pretty, and I try to stay on top of homestead filers too, to remind them, and I reach out and say, make sure you file this. So I don't like the penalty thing myself.
We talked about the open town office in the last few years. It's amazed to me how many times that Sue has mentioned with somebody about the homestead, and even though they've been long-term Vermont residents, they've never heard of it before. So all these years that they could have been getting homestead reductions, you know, they just haven't. She's a great educator. But it's just amazing to me that so many people have never heard of it, don't know it's there. And right?
Less now.
Further public comment? Board contributions? Ready to vote? So, just for clarity's sake, I think in the past we have assessed this, but last year or two we did not.
I think that's correct.
Yeah. All in favor of not assessing a late homestead filing penalty this year? This is in favor, a yes means no penalty, okay guys? All in favor of not assessing, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Oh, that was good, okay. 5-0, perfect. Item 10, also the purview of the town treasurer. She's presented the internal financial controls checklist for municipalities. Sue, I can give you a yes on, I've attended financial trainings, because there was a blank in that line.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind checking that off and just write your name in there. I think I sent you an email, and if you got back to me, I missed you, so I didn't want to put something in there that I was not.
I gave up reading emails.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Blanket kind of way. No, just kidding. And I had a question. It says, do we have written policies and procedures for financial operations? Does each town official have a copy of them? I don't know that I've seen them, and if I have, I think it's been a very long time. Could you provide them to the board, just like in a, are they like in some kind of digital PDF thing?
They're in multiple files in our S drive that we all have. I mean, the people who are doing the, well, the policies need to be updated. Procedures are in multiple files, well, sort of, right, Jackie? I mean, they're kind of, we all know where they are, like.
How difficult would it be to scan them and email them to us? Is that prohibitively?
She said they're in a drive. They're gonna be.
Well, but she said that the other ones were
Not all of
distributed.
them are electronic.
Yeah,
I
there's
think
still
that's where.
some handwritten.
Is it a reasonable task to get these together to email us a copy?
You're gonna have to wait till.
I was
for a
gonna
bit.
say, it's
You
not
don't
an
mind waiting
urgency,
for a
and they're
bit.
gonna close
I
the
can
year.
get to it eventually. It's not gonna happen. It'll take a while, and we need to revisit policies, financial policies. Especially since I just taught a class on it at the BMCTA, and everybody said, "Can we have a copy of your policies?" And I said, "No, I'm sorry, ours need updating."
Yeah, let's do that.
So yeah, that's something that needs to be revisited, probably in a year when I don't have elections. So that's on my
To redo the policies.
2023 calendar.
And then is it possible that in a month we might be getting a copy of our current policies together? Is that a reasonable amount of time?
I mean, some of them are already on the website. There's a number of financial policies that are on the website we did pass, but there's not like an overarching thing. It's something, I mean, I have one thing that I think is not on the website, but the rest of them you guys have been doing.
I guess you know what I haven't seen,
stuff.
like we've seen policies because we write a lot of them, and a lot of them are on the website. I don't think we've particularly seen procedures for like what's the flow of an invoice to be verified, get approved.
I thought we did that one not all that long ago.
You may have done it internally at the town office, but I don't believe that it's come to the board.
That one seems to be pretty fresh in my head.
Well, we write that one up every year for the auditor.
Right, yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
It would be good for us to have that as a matter of oversight.
Doesn't the audit, like, and I was just looking at that today too, but doesn't that have a lot of our policy kind of references in it too, Sue?
I mean, he looks at stuff. No, I think, not really, to be honest.
Alright.
He does more like internal control, a lot of internal control work that he does, and sort of watches, sees how we do things, and that's his internal, they do internal control audits.
Does the board have any questions about the financial controls checklist or any of the responses or notations on it? Do you want to offer up a motion that we acknowledge it, accept it, and we'll sign it?
I'll make that motion, we accept it.
Okay.
Motion by Mr. Markowski with a second by Mr. Wyman to accept the financial controls checklist as provided by the town treasurer. Any further discussion or public input? None heard, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Item 11, assignment of funds. Jackie, Dave. So, these are funds that are in the current year's budget that's about to end, right? That you're designating to be spent on these specific things in a future year's
That
budget.
we can roll it over for this year's budget, this coming year's budget.
Okay. Am I correct that item 1 is a reassignment of something that was already assigned from the year that closed a year ago?
Correct.
Is that problematic in any way to other people than me? No? Like, why are we hanging on to this money for 2 years? Like, I get the hang on to it for 1 year thing, but I think that there's a reason that we only hang on, we're only allowed to hang on to it for 1 year. Is this even authorized to hang on to it for a second?
So we can if we reassign it. So last year we assigned it from the PD budget for highway, for an additional person to come on, to come on for training, which then the one that was leaving actually ended up leaving early, so the funds weren't used. So it was just kind of...
Well, now I'm even like more nervous.
Oh, right.
So you assigned it, we assigned it from police to highway,
Right.
but
And
isn't
it's
all the
just-
highway like exclusive for
So-
highway? Like, we can't pull out of highway and put it back in the general fund, right?
It's not in highway.
But it never
not in
really
highway.
moved.
In highway, it's got a good reserve. It's got a healthy reserve. It never even needed this, actually.
Yeah, it never actually moved to highway.
So if we don't assign these funds, don't the funds just go into our reserve fund?
Unrestricted.
Unrestricted reserve? I mean, I guess I don't understand the benefit of assigning. It's like, we have a budget for next year that's sufficient, and
It's not with fuel prices now. I mean, I've told you guys the last few months, we're definitely gonna go over fuel costs next year.
I guess I'm understanding, I think, what Tim is offering, which is, you know, to quote a famous American, like, what difference at this point does it make? Like, do we need to designate it for this stuff? It looks like it's going, I mean, I guess the K-9, I understand, that was kind of like raised from the community for a specific thing. But like the rest of it, I mean, if you run over the fuel budget, why don't we just take it from unrestricted general funds?
right.
Which would mean we wouldn't have to assign number 1 and number 3. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do. I mean, I like, personally for me, I mean, it's up to you guys, it's your budget, but, I like to stay kind of within the, you know, what we've budgeted for, and
Well, understood, but we wrote the budget in November when you were paying, you know, 2 something or whatever, and now you're paying 480 or 560.
And I think it's also useful at the end of the year to see how much we have left over, and to assign stuff into the next year kind of takes it out of that, and I like just having it go into the reserve. It's,
We've assigned it for at least 10 years that I can remember, that this has happened at the year end all the time.
I know it does, I don't know what the real benefit is, other than like, I get it for like a specific program where, like, as I said, for this K-9 thing with the police, that was, you know, fundraising revenue, that was people's designated contributions. But like, Sue, do you have, or is this not your thing?
I agree with both of you. It's really easy for me to not assign things because, yeah, we will go over budget, it will eat into our unreserved fund balance, but that happens sometimes. But I think for people who are looking at their individual budget, like the PD and the highway, they like to know, this is what I have to work with, you know, and I think when you assign these funds, that's a benefit for them, because when they go over on a line, the chief can say, I've got that 30,000, I can, you know, it helps them to be budget conscious, I think. As far as accounting, it makes no difference to me either way, you know, but, so I understand both sides. And Jackie, perhaps I'm wrong, but is that how
No,
they?
it is.
Because I don't deal with a budget.
I think sometimes it's more of like the mental note of saying, okay, I have an extra 30,000 in my budget, to know that I have the extra money for, travel and expenses and for professional development because I know I have, possibility of a couple new employees that I have to put new clothing on and bulletproof vest. And I have employees that I have to do training on and send them away for training, which is going to eat up a lot of the budget. And fuel, which they've already maxed out their budget, and that hasn't even included June.
I did speak with Chief just this week about that there are some trainings that he's gonna have to do in New Hampshire that they can't do in Pittsburgh, so. And remember, we have a fairly new force that I think the oldest is 25, so there's a lot of training opportunities for these guys going forward.
Okay. I think it was a good discussion. I appreciate everybody's input. I can go along with doing it the way we've been doing it.
It seems like it's changing the budget in a single swipe. Yeah, so I guess I stick with leaving it in the reserve, and if they need it, we dip into the reserve as we need it.
So are these requests that come from departments when they realize at the end of the year that there's not going to be a full expenditure of this or that?
Jackie sends an email out to all department heads
Yeah.
and says, hey, this is this time of the year, what are you anticipating?
So he's basically asking for his budget to be increased by this amount.
No, he's asking, or she's asking for money that they didn't spend out of the present year's budget to be allotted to them for the next year.
Sure.
Because maybe the timing of their fuel purchase or the timing of the training was such that.
No, I get that part.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to sign it as they've got it.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion from Mr. Wyman, second from Mr. Markowski to assign funds, $30,000 to police. This is the destination spots.
Yes.
$5,262 to police for the K-9 program from donations, and $8,000 to buildings and grounds for fuel. Further discussion from the board, public contributions, public comment? Are you ready to vote? All in favor of assigning funds as delineated on the memo, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no.
No.
4 to 1. Correct. Then item 12, we've got some purchase considerations for diesel, heating fuel, and propane, and then we have the warrant. So what's the pleasure of the board?
Want to do all three? Same time?
I just have one question on the fuel. This is for the on-road, for like the town trucks, the projects. Haven't we in the past been able to purchase the dyed fuel, the non-tax fuel, because we're a municipality?
So, no, we get to pay tax. That will change, what, 2 years ago, 3 years ago? Yeah.
'Cause I remember we used to be able to get the red fuel.
Not anymore.
Non-tax, okay.
They changed that. It was just a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I'll
There is
I'll
one-
tell you all about it if you want to know.
No, I'm good.
I remember when it
You
happened.
just did, so.
Yeah,
I'm
well-
good.
There's one tax that we are exempt from, but otherwise, there's
Yeah,
no we have to
that's-
pay.
So Jackie, it's the pleasure of having you at our meeting. We're almost at the end of our fiscal year, as you know, and
Yep.
I've been getting fuel usage for propane and heating oil and things from Elaine. But I haven't been getting the gas stuff, and I wondered at the end of the fiscal year, if you can get me the gas usage. I think you were doing with gas cards?
Yep. Yeah, just let me know what months you're missing, and I can forward them to you.
Right, I have one of the months, and so I think I need all the rest.
Okay,
It might be easy just to send them all to me, because I can pull out the one that I have
okay,
for this fiscal year.
okay.
Thanks.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board? Do you want to do these together, separately? What do you want to do?
Together's fine.
Together's fine? Okay, so is there a motion to accept the quote from Champlain Valley Fuels for the #2 heating oil and on-road diesel to accept the quote from Files Brothers for propane and to approve the warrant in the amount of $258,482.92 of general fund expenses, of which I will note that one of those was a house.
Oh, right, I forgot that was in there.
There's a substantial
Well,
amount to do a buyout house on
Right.
Ring Road.
That's not our money either, so.
Right.
So moved.
Okay, there's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Wyman. Any questions or public comment on this? Elaine does give us a nice memo about who she approached and who responded in terms of these quotes for fuel. And the price for the propane is $1.94 a gallon. The price for the on-road diesel appears to be Rutland Rack plus 15 cents plus tax, and the fuel oil appears to be Rutland Rack plus 20 cents plus 2 cents tax. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. The ayes have it. Okay, at this time, do we have any suggestions for the good of the community? Any kind of announcements anybody would like to make? Table tennis tournaments or training sessions on hiatus?
Yeah.
On hiatus. Okay, that's all. If not, the board will be at recess at 8:35 and we will go to an executive session afterwards as posted. Thank you.